Of the Citizens Communications Council. I'm Art Hartel, I'm Vice Chairman, and I will preside tonight in the absence of Tom Glynn. I have no announcements. Are there any announcements from any of the board members? No, then we will move to the report from Radnor Studio 21. George
Thank
Strimmel.
you very much. I can report that, of course, we are into that time well known to all of us as election time. And soon qualified candidates will be appearing on Radnor Studio 21. In addition to which, we will continue with our programming. It ebbs and flows. It all depends upon the time of year. Right now, there's not as much in the way of sports as we've had before, so we're repeating sports we presented in earlier times. I can't say there's been any major breakthroughs. Pretty much what you see is what we are and who we are, and that's ever the part of this business, and that's the measure of our quality and our service to the community. We continue to, and I can both give you the problem and the resolution, although I don't mean to steal my friend from Comcast thunder here, but I will say that one of the things we have been dealing with is the fact that under the agreement with Adelphia that was taken over by Comcast, it clearly says that the provider shall keep our equipment in good working condition. Our equipment is in lousy working condition. Shall provide qualified technicians to inspect such equipment at least quarterly, and shall certify to the township at least quarterly all such equipment is in good working order. Right now, basically, the problem is in cameras, and of course that's what we're dealing with. That's who we are. We are not somebody who can suddenly make up dollars and cents we don't have. We can seek for it, but it would not take a lot of time and a lot of money to bring us up to speed in the digital world with good camera. And I have been assured, and I don't, again, mean to take the words out of the representative of Comcast, that this will be remedied. Further, I have nothing to say except
Thank you, George.
we battle on.
Good.
Thank you.
I see Jack Brooks, who is president of...
I should, thank you very much, Art. I should yield the floor.
You don't have to yield it. I'll graciously give it to him.
Okay, for Jack Brooks, thank you.
This is Jack Brooks, who is president of Radnor Studio 21.
Good evening, everybody. I know it's been some time since I've had the honor of coming and addressing you on all the progress that we make at Radnor Studio 21. And as you know, we're a board made up of what we try to feel is very dedicated people that are in the public interest in doing public television, and we feel that we have one of the greatest public television stations in the tri-state area. I have been the president for a while, and our board has been very much intact. We do have one change that's going to be making, that we're going to have to make on a board, is Rafe D'Amico has resigned from the board, and so he was a good person to have. He was a younger person. He brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm to our board, and we wish to thank him for that service. We're in the process of forming a committee that will take nominees. We have a subcommittee for that, and hopefully we will be able to report to you some progress in that area within a month. We don't think that it'll take that long. We do have some people that have voiced an interest and have helped the studio in the past, and that's part of what makes our studio so great. While George is our general manager and our paid employee, we do have an awful lot of volunteers, as you know. We don't turn out the product that we have without great volunteers, people that are interested in television, people that are interested in progressing public television as we know it. One of the issues also that I want to discuss with you tonight is the issue of funding going forward. We have, for many years, been raising money on our own, and for many years, I say for 8 years now, we've been doing the Taste of Radnor and other issues. realizing that it is up to us as a nonprofit to raise a certain amount of our funding above and beyond what we get. I think that it's just worthy to bring up the fact that today, in today's economy, in today's world, we do feel that it may be a little bit more of a challenge to raise funding on our own this year. And so therefore, with some of the things that we need to do with our studio, it'll be a challenge, and we're looking forward to stepping up to that. We're going to have some ideas and try to integrate ourselves a little bit more in the community, so for those people that do want to make contributions, they know it's going locally, and one of the greatest things about us is they can see where their money goes. We don't do a telethon, we don't do a begathon as other public television stations have done. What we do is we do the event each year for the Taste of Radnor. And that means that we partnership up with the other restaurants in the community and highlight and feature the restaurants, bring people in from the outside. And that's certainly something that we're still attempting to do in this year, despite the economy and stuff. But it very much is a partnership. So while we also get grant income, again, that's another thing that's always in question as to what way may we be able to raise in grant money. And so we need your support in any of those issues. One of the long-standing issues that seems to be for many years, and as long as I have been on the board or president of the organization, and that is really holding Comcast to their commitment. I was happy when I was approached on the way in today and saying that the quarterly inspections alone are going to be done. How can any organization know that we have an issue unless they physically come in and see our issue? Addressing it on the phone is one thing, but seeing it within the shop, how we've had to cobble it together, is quite a different thing. And that experience means that as it was pointed out originally in the contract, that was the need. The necessity was to bring somebody in, see how we're working, and see what it looks like. Also, in today's digital world and going digital, we have cameras that were in existence with the original studio. And those cameras, quite factually, have worked out through their useful life. They're analog cameras in a digital world. You could buy a better camera today in a prosumer shop than what we're working with in the studio. And as George pointed out, and I've often said, that camera lens is the window into what we do. And we feel that we're entitled to holding to some of the contract, which I think is pretty clearly stated, and everybody understands what the state-of-the-art equipment is. We've never asked for any extras. We have paid for extras above and beyond by doing our fundraising and going out and partnershiping up, having people donate needed equipment to us. We've had generous people that have stepped forward in the past. I just wonder if there isn't something that we can do in the spirit of holding to a contract that was readily signed by both parties, the necessity of saying the inspections have to take place and the equipment has to be brought up to speed. That was just the basic equipment that was in there to begin with. And the equipment, quite frankly, I don't think can be repaired. We're moving into a digital world. Many of the look that you see is equipment that has helped us get there. And I think for our goals to continue to be really one of the best in the business, it won't take a lot, but it does mean that somebody has to look at the contract and say, what does it mean when somebody says we're entitled to replacement and state-of-the-art equipment? And we have not asked for that money, and they have not been held accountable for that for many years. So while that may take some money this year, they have not had to pay for any of that for many years in the past. And I would just conclude with, before we negotiate new contracts, new issues going forward, let's make sure that we're all on the same page of what has been for many of the standing years and why we sometimes feel like the paupers doing a lot with a little and asking our viewers to help contribute to that. It's time to hold somebody accountable for what is already in the existence of the contract.
Mr. Brooks, could you, at the next meeting of this council, which is in April, bring us a list of the equipment that needs to be replaced, along with the prices that would be required or the cost for that replacement of that equipment, so that we can pursue this with Comcast on the basis of some current factual information for what it will cost and the time it will take to install it.
We do have some ideas about what it would cost, not looking for something that's grand and glorious, just looking for what we need to get the job done. And I certainly can supply that with you, and I think it might be also helpful for the board to recognize how much equipment in the past that our donors have given to us or contributed in dollars so that we could buy, so you can just really see the magnitude of the dollar amount that has been. We're not asking for a lot. We're just asking to try to go to that next level where everybody else is digital, and we're not yet.
Mr. Brooks, and this is also addressed to the Comcast representative, rather than your list, if possible, it would probably advance the ball to a greater degree if we could come in with an agreed upon list between Studio One and Comcast, and on that list, if Comcast has a disagreement with your position, have them state that on the list so that we could review that in advance of our next meeting. Because if you just bring in your list, then we have to give it to Comcast, and we're well into the summer before anything happens.
We have to move a little faster because one of our cameras is broken, so we need to do that. I can break it down as to what was legacy equipment, stuff that was original in the plan, and then what we have upgraded to perhaps that is beyond the scope of what would be.
And my second comment goes to the legacy equipment. I think we have been through this. I have a recollection of doing a mediation between Studio 21 and Comcast probably in 2003 or 4, sometime 5 or 6 years ago. And there was an agreement initialed by both parties reiterating the quarterly inspections and laying out in some more detail the process by which those quarterly inspections would take place.
I don't believe I'm standing here asking for anything new. I think I'm asking for, once again, what I felt has been down the highway before. It is just simply a situation of sometimes it gets unworkable, and we're at the breaking point now where we just don't have the equipment to move forward, and we can't repair that equipment either. So it's just really a question, I agree, of saying we've already negotiated these things. This has already been agreed to. Who is responsible for holding them to that? We do not have the authority. The contract is not with us. It is with the township and with the cable council. We are a separate organization that's given the grant and the operating privilege of running a studio that I think we do a fantastic job with.
I think you do too. And we are now, and I would direct this again to Comcast, we are less than 2 years and 3 months away from the expiration of this franchise. We are into the 36-month federally specified renewal period, and it's time we get back to work thinking about the form of the next franchise agreement with Comcast. And from the township's point of view, and I would think also from Studio 21's point of view, that contract should be somewhat of a mirror of the present one with Verizon, which takes Comcast out of the business of having to do specific tasks,
I understand
such
how that can be
as to pay for the lease, to provide the telephone, to provide this camera and that playback equipment, and simply go to a system where they provide an additional percentage of revenues for the support of not only Studio 21, but the government and educational channels within this township.
Certainly in today's world, moving to that model would, I think, help everybody and all parties, because what was envisioned in the past is not necessarily the reality of the day. Before we move forward, I'm very concerned about making sure that we're holding to what has been already negotiated, approved, and negotiated through other mediation, and we still don't feel that we're necessarily there in our minds and the way that we interpret that to mean.
Two things. One is that the contract several years ago was extended for a 3-year period when this issue, along with the issue of what was necessary to bring Channel 21 and the rest of their obligations to the township up to speed, we did allow and we did enter into a 3-year extension. That's up and we're now going forward. I think, I do not know what the other board members' position would be, but my position would be very clearly that I would not be in favor of any more extensions, but that we get to the contract itself and that we see that the obligations under the existing contract have been fulfilled as part and parcel of the good faith of going forward with contract negotiations on a renewal basis. So if you would proceed, and I think Mr. Wilson's suggestion of having a prior meeting with Comcast to go over the equipment needs and to resolve the issue would be most helpful. I will remind Comcast that within the last year and a half, 2 years, I can't remember the exact date, we sent a letter from the Cable Council to them outlining the legal obligations that they had, and they were detailed. We have not had a formal response from them, so I would expect that if they looked at their records, they would find that if they have any objections to any of our legal positions, I would expect them to come forward. If not, then I would expect them to abide by the contract as we have interpreted and so inform them. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
We would appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
We have a report from Comcast. Aren't you glad to be here?
Having a great time.
He'd rather be anywhere else than here.
Yeah, just making a quick note of that last point that you made, because I don't know that we're necessarily aware of that letter. I know you are well aware of the reorg with Tony DiTomaso and that kind of thing, so I will bring that to Kevin.
If you can, if you can find it in a day or two, can we find it in our archive and send them another copy of it?
You should know by the morning whether or not. I'm going to let Kevin know tonight as I leave. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that'll be fine. If you would do that, and if you can't, I'm sure we can dig it out of the township's archives and send you another copy.
Fair enough. And as you well know, I'm here representing Kevin, who Kevin Broadhurst, who is the director. So I'm not necessarily empowered to speak on any of the contractual obligations and that kind of thing. But as George mentioned, we are going to send out the engineers to do the inspections and that kind of thing within the next week, I believe it is. I do have a couple of announcements.
Before we move to your announcements, just finishing up the last part of this discussion, it had been suggested by Mr. Wilson that Comcast and the studio get together on an equipment list, what needs to be replaced, what needs to be fixed. Could you arrange with Kevin and with George or Jack for a time to meet and get together on that? And then so inform the township so that they can keep the board apprised as to when that meeting will be held?
Absolutely. I intend to open up a line of communication first thing tomorrow morning. So
Okay. I mean, and if we
Absolutely.
can close the loop on that between now and next week, I think we will have, or next month, but move it quickly. I think that will relieve us of some of the anxiety and angst that we've had over the performance of Comcast on this particular issue.
fair enough. Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. And so last month you had asked me to look up the service records, and we had the records pulled for the month of February in Radnor Township. We had 11 total service calls. I have a breakdown if you'd like to know the specifics. But we've had 11, and going forward I'll provide you with a number each month.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem. And just, I guess,
That sounds remarkably low for a month like February. Do you think it is?
I'm not necessarily certain because I don't know what the other numbers are doing in the county, but
Just
It did
to
seem a
give
bit-
you some historical precedent, we used to get this report in a documented form. They would give us schedules, and we realized that there were some extraordinary things during that period of time, such as the build-out and a couple of big snowstorms and so on.
Sure.
But on average, we were experiencing calls at least 10 times that on an average month. But if we're now down to 11 or a dozen calls a month, I give you great applause and kudos for the good work and the good service.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can add to that is I know they're constantly upgrading the network, and they constantly stress that there's always, upgrades and so on and so forth. So it's probably a result of that. If I could just...
Sorry, excuse
Sure.
me. If you could give us maybe a little bit more color on the nature of the calls.
Absolutely.
Are these interactions with actual customers, or are they just line-type service?
Sure,
or
I've actually got a
repair?
breakdown for you, so that would probably...
Yeah, just because if I think a number of us are surprised by the numbers, so maybe if we understood the type of call
Sure.
you're talking about, it would
Absolutely.
be
Well,
helpful.
they've got it broken down as follows. There were two and these are service calls, so they would, have been picked up the phone and had a truck roll go out. There were two that were related to the speed of the internet in a particular customer's home. With the Comcast digital voice, there were two with a no dial tone. Let me see here. Oh, the digital cable having a fuzzy picture or a blank picture. There were two of those, and one of each of the following. Cable went out. There was a problem with the high definition in one of the customer's televisions. The converter box of one of the customers was not working. And the internet service, the actual service had gone down on the internet in one customer. And the other was a line into the home, which probably means the line was either low-hanging or was of danger, some sort of danger to them. So does that give you a good, accurate picture?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Not a problem. And if I could
Now
just...
you can come to your announcements.
Well, actually, before I go to the announcements, I do have one question for you, because you said that, and maybe you can help me out and I can
Okay.
better provide you. You said you each month, so how did our predecessor sort of handle service report? You said there was a report.
Again, I don't know if do we have those service reports we used to get 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, before, we used to get them regularly before Verizon became a competitor here in the township. And after that point in time, getting some of this information has been less than free-flowing.
Sure.
If we will find the way it was reported before, we'll send it to you.
Excellent.
And some reasonable semblance of this kind of information would be most helpful.
Terrific, and I have no problem verbalizing it to you each month, but if it helps you out to have it down on paper and broken down just the way we have it, not a problem.
Yeah, so. I think that under the circumstances of where we're operating, service becomes an increasingly important aspect of what's happening in the township. So we'll send it to you, and you can see how we broke it down before, and if you can do likewise, we'd appreciate it.
My pleasure. That would be great. Thank you. And so just to the announcement, just sort of a housekeeping with regard to the FCC digital broadcast transition. Customers have all been notified and are continually being notified via bill inserts that TV stations must switch to digital transmission by June 12th. And quite naturally, as a Comcast customer, they're also being notified that they are, as a Comcast customer, have no effect. And that would be it.
Thank you very much.
You're very
Do we have any other questions from any of the board members? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next piece of business is the review of the communications ordinance. We have been asked to look at and redraft an ordinance that will go from this council to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Subcommittee was appointed, which consisted of Mr. Wilson, Mr. Riley, and myself. Mr. Wilson has a report about the drafting and if you could give us the background of why it's needed and the purpose it's going to serve, and then a little bit about it, I'd appreciate it, Mr. Wilson.
This is a suggested redraft of the of the ordinance governing wireless communication systems, or in the vernacular, cell towers. This is a process which has been divided between the Board of Commissioners in the case of wireless communication towers erected on public property, and the Zoning Hearing Board in the case of wireless communication towers erected on private property. And the board asked us, in our function as a communications advisory committee, to look at this ordinance and redraft it so that it would provide essentially one-stop shopping for applicants who desire to erect new cell towers in the township, or wireless communication systems, because in some cases this equipment can go on an existing building. We have, with the assistance of Mr. Gian Cristoforo and Mr. Doling, put together our suggestions for the revision of this ordinance. And we have asked now that we have a draft, that it be posted on the township website, that public comment be invited at our meeting in April, also that it be reviewed by the appropriate township officials, and that it be reviewed by the Zoning Hearing Board, which heretofore has had jurisdiction of such matters where wireless communication system equipment is sought to be erected on private property. We think we have made some improvements. There are some restrictions on the powers of local governments imposed by federal law. For example, federal law does not permit us, in most cases, to just say no. We have to make accommodations which will permit the existence of the wireless communication systems upon which I think most of us have come to rely more and more with each passing day and week and month. And unfortunately, those communication systems do require, under today's technology, that the equipment be erected at fairly high locations. And we think we have specified a process which will be fair, which will permit the opportunity for citizen comment, both pro and con, on these applications, and will permit these decisions to be made in an open and impartial manner. So I would ask township staff to proceed to post this on the township website, together with an invitation for public comment at our April meeting. And I suppose you ought to send a copy of the draft as well to those organizations which have applications pending in the township.
We'll take care of that.
And to whatever other officials at the township who should be reviewing this before it goes up to the commissioners. It would be helpful.
No problem.
Does anyone have any other old business? Any new business? I see in the public participation, we have 3 Boy Scouts with us this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Would one of you or all 3 of you like to address the council or tell us the troop that you're from and the purpose of your being here? Are you working on your civics merit badge or some other award, or is there another purpose for you to be here? We're delighted to have you.
Sir, working on our communications.
Come up here and make your presence known.
So we're working on our communications merit badge. It's we're on our last step. Us 3 have done every other part of it.
Would you introduce yourself and tell us the troop you're from?
We're from Troop 917. It's not our main troop, just during the school year. So. Yeah, it's Troop 971. We're Valley Forge Military Academy cadets. So
Very good.
We go there every Thursday night, meet, and we just finished up our communications merit badge. We've done everything except this. We just have to sit in on communications meeting with the township, and we've actually learned a lot. Really, I never knew that all this kind of went on behind the scenes. So I'm really interested.
Well, we're delighted to have you.
Maybe you can arrange to get these 3 gentlemen a copy of the ordinance, and we'll take their comments too.
Thank you for coming, and we appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Do we have any other comments? If there's no further business before the council, I will accept a motion to adjourn. I'll move that. All in favor? Aye.